I'm Erin Vogel. I'm a senior research associate in the Department of Population and Public Health Sciences, and I am excited to share my work today on youth susceptibility to oral nicotine products that are advertised as being tobacco-free in comparison to susceptibility to cigarettes and e-cigarettes. I have no conflicts of interest to disclose. So what are oral nicotine products? This is an emerging class of nicotine products that are advertised as being tobacco-free because they do not contain solid tobacco leaves. And these come in several different forms, some of which you can see here. There are nicotine pouches, which you put between your gum and your lip for oral absorption. And then there are also forms that are similar to things we see in everyday life, such as gums, gummies, and lozenges, which looks like a tin of breath mints. And importantly, oral nicotine products are not marketed as medicinal smoking cessation aids. So while some of these products are similar in formulation to things like nicotine replacement therapy, like Nicorette gum, they're not regulated or marketed as such. They're marketed as ordinary consumer products. And these oral nicotine products have several characteristics that may make them appealing to young people. First of all, they come in a variety of appealing flavors. We know that flavored tobacco products greatly appeal to young people, particularly fruit and mint flavored products, both of which are represented in the oral nicotine product marketplace. And these flavors might entice kids who might not use unflavored or tobacco flavored products. Oral nicotine products are also very discreet, so they don't produce a noticeable odor or visible smoke or aerosol, and they might be used in places where smoking and vaping are not allowed or are not practical. So for kids, this could mean it would be easy to get away with use at home, in class, or in other settings where they don't want their use to be detected. They're also very familiar. So as you can see here, some oral nicotine products look similar to, for example, an ordinary pack of gum that does not contain nicotine. And these products have very few barriers to use. So whereas something like a cigarette, you have to know how to light it, you have to know what you're doing, or even an e-cigarette, you often have to push buttons or use them in some way that you might not be familiar with. A lot of oral nicotine products are very straightforward to use. And to understand which youth might be most vulnerable to using these products, we can measure what's called susceptibility to nicotine or tobacco use, which is the absence of a firm resolve to not use these products. And we measure youth's curiosity about the products, their intention to use them, whether they think they're going to, and a little bit different from intention, their willingness to use the product. So someone might not intend to use a tobacco product, but they might be willing to do it under certain social circumstances, such as if they're offered the product by a friend. So we can separate kids into those who say, definitely not. I'm not curious about these products. I wouldn't use it even if I was offered. I don't intend to use it. From those who say, I probably wouldn't, or I might, or I definitely would. So those who say that they would definitely not use are considered not susceptible. I had two primary research questions in this study. First, I wanted to know whether oral nicotine products might attract youth who are not susceptible to other nicotine and tobacco products. So among those who would not use cigarettes or e-cigarettes, might they be willing to use oral nicotine products because of those features I discussed earlier? And also importantly, I wanted to know whether oral nicotine products might contribute to tobacco use disparities by attracting youth from disadvantaged populations that have been traditionally targeted by the tobacco industry. So for this study, I drew data from a prospective cohort study of 9th and 10th grade students in Southern California. They were recruited fall 2020 to 2021. And for the survey wave that I used in this analysis, it was conducted fall 2021. Participants included in this analysis were those who had never used nicotine or tobacco products, which was 3,130, and those who completed items measuring their susceptibility to 4 different classes of nicotine products: combustible cigarettes, e-cigarettes, and then 2 different types of oral nicotine products: nicotine pouches, and then flavored gum, lozenges, or gummies. So in grouping these items together, I considered cigarettes and e-cigarettes to be inhalable products, and pouches and flavored gum, lozenges, or gummies to be oral nicotine products. And based on that, I categorized participants as being exclusively susceptible to inhalable products, exclusively susceptible to oral products, susceptible to both, or not susceptible to either product class. So every participant fell into one of these four categories, depending on how they answered those survey items. I also measured sociodemographic characteristics such as gender identity, race and ethnicity, family socioeconomic status, and sexual identity. The sample was a little less than half cisgender female. Most described their family's financial status as being about average. 73% were heterosexual, so we had a decent proportion of those identifying as sexual minorities. Consistent with the populations of the schools that we were recruiting from, the majority of participants identified as Hispanic or Asian. So here you can see the prevalence of susceptibility to each product category. The majority of participants, susceptibility to e-cigarettes was the most prevalent, with nearly 20% of participants being susceptible to e-cigarette use. Cigarettes and gums, gummies, or lozenges were about the same. 15% of participants were susceptible to each of those product classes, and 8.7% were susceptible to pouches. So the categories in the red box here are oral nicotine products, and taken together, 15.6% of participants were susceptible to oral nicotine products, meaning one or both of those categories. So here we can see the odds of susceptibility to oral nicotine products on the left, inhalable products only, or both types of products relative to non-susceptibility. So what I really want to draw your attention to are these statistics here. So we can see that compared to youth who were well off or average, those who were raised in poverty or with a varied socioeconomic status were more likely to be exclusively susceptible to oral nicotine products relative to non-susceptibility. Similarly, those who identified as sexual minorities were more likely to have this exclusive susceptibility to oral nicotine products. And I'm particularly interested in this category because this reflects kids who might be drawn into nicotine and tobacco use via oral products when they are not susceptible to using inhalable products. So among youth who had never used tobacco, 15.6% reported susceptibility to oral nicotine products, and 2.9% were uniquely susceptible to oral products and not susceptible to inhalable products. Lower socioeconomic status and sexual minority youth were more likely to have that exclusive susceptibility to oral products and also to be susceptible to inhalable products or both types. This implies that oral nicotine products might attract youth who would not otherwise use nicotine, including those from some populations that have been traditionally targeted by the tobacco industry. And as use prevalence and sales of these products continue to increase, ongoing surveillance will be important. So I'd like to briefly acknowledge my many mentors and collaborators on this study, the funding sources, the wonderful research group who collected the data, and I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
Any questions for Erin?
Devil's advocate question, just on the point you made at the beginning. What would happen if someone has chews Lucy like regular gum because it's really easy to use? So, you know, giving you a hard time on that one. What would happen if they just chew it like regular gum? Would they absorb the nicotine, or do they need to use it like a Nicorette where you park it? It becomes kind of tricky.
Yeah, good question. So if they use it just like regular gum, it can cause gastrointestinal problems if you don't chew it and park it, similar to Nicorette. So yes, there are some nuances to using these products, but they look very easy to use. It's easy to just pop a piece of gum in your mouth.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Erin.
Thank you.